Good afternoon, Megillat Esther, part 2. B'Shem Hashem Naseh v'Natzliach, Parashat Tetsave, which is this Shabbat, and we also have Parashat Zachor, to remember what Amalek did to us. So this shiur is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat Yecheskel Baruch ben Avraham Halevi and Hanania ben Reuven, and all those who were murdered prior, on, and post October 7, and any neshama that needs a zechut. May all those neshamot have an aliyah. This is also for Refuah Shelema to Zechariah Dov ben Pearl Shira, Avraham ben Chana, Mazal bat Goltesh Sultanat, Chaya Esther bat Nechama, Tova bat Tzipora, and Lezivug Hagun for our singles to meet their partners in life. Sheizku livnot bait ne'eman bigdusha ube tahara. And we should have success. Ooh. And we should have success, sorry about that, should have success in the chinuch of our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren in Derech HaTorah. So in last week parasha, we learned about Machatzit HaShekel, which is half a shekel. Each man had to give a coin of a half a shekel from the age of 20 to 60. And this Machatzit HaShekel, then they were to be used for buying the sacrifices, Korban Tzibur, the sacrifices for the nation, and they were also going to be melted for holding the pillars of the Mishkan. The sacrifices for the nations, they were done daily. They were done on Shabbat, on Chagim, on Yom Kippur, and usually the call went out before Rosh Chodesh Adar. That's when people were remembered. It's time now to give the money, the Machatzit HaShekel. And with these coins, the time of Moshe used each coin to count Ben Israel, only the men from 20 to 60, because these were the men who were going to go to war. And in our days, we still perform this mitzvah. We use this money for tzedakah, and we gave the money to the poor. In our days, each member of family has to give Machatzit HaShekel, which comes to about $1.50 per person, per family member, and we give this for tzedakah. Amar Resh Lakish. Resh Lakish says in the Gemara, Hashem knew that one day there will be a Rasha, Haman, who would want to buy the Jews and kill them. He would donate 10,000 silver coins. Haman paid to get the Jews killed. So what did Hashem do? Hashem higdim refuah lamaka. Hashem first prepared already a way out for the Jews. What was the way out for the Jews? That the Jews in the time of Moshe, they gave tzedakah for a mitzvah, the Machatzit HaShekel. That tzedakah is a protection. So in the zechut of the tzedakah, of this mitzvah, right, the Jews were saved. The gezerah, the decree of Haman, was cancelled. As Shlomo HaMelech said, tzedakah tatzil mimavet. When we give tzedakah, we are saved from death. This is really one of the reasons. Haman said to Achashverosh, Yeshno am echan mefuzar umeforad. When he came, he didn't say, here, money, I want to buy the Jews. He came, he was very smart, very tricky. And he said, there is a nation that live among the many nations of your kingdom, and this nation is mefuzar. They're all over your kingdom. And meforad, and they are divided. They're not united. And among your nations. And then he goes on. And then the pastor goes on and says, Lehashmid ulabed beyom echad. He said, I want to buy them here, 10,000 coins, silver coins, to buy the Jews, because I want to destroy them all. Annihilate them, all of them. The young, the babies, the old, the teenagers, the middle age, everyone, the youngsters, every single one, the toddlers, beyom echad. Even Hitler never had this in mind, in one day, to kill all the Jews. But what saved us, one of the reasons that saved us, is the machatzit shekel that they gave, the half a shekel they gave in the times of Moshe. It broke that power that Haman had over the Jews. As it says in the Talmud Yerushalmi, in Masechet Shkalim, it says that in the zechut of this mitzvah that the Jews gave, the Jews broke the power of our enemies over us. And Be'ezrat Hashem, again, when we give again this year again, the same would happen, Be'ezrat Hashem. So in this week's Parashat Tetsave, in Perek Chavchet, the 28th, Pasuk Bet, Pasuk 2, it says, Ve'asita bigde kodesh le'aharon achicha. You, Moshe, you're going to make, not he himself, but he's going to tell the people, to make bigde kodesh, clothing that are holy, kodesh, kadosh, holy, for Aharon, who is the Kohen Gadol. Lechavod v'letiferet, for honor and for splendor. Hashem commanded Moshe to make the clothing for Aharon. Those clothing became the envy of kings. The material itself was woven in a way that was very special, and each layer was made in a very specific way and for a specific reason. So, for example, we know that the ketonet, was like a shirt, and that was to forgive murder. Then michnasayim, the pants, these were short pants, that was to forgive the sin of adultery. Then the mitznefet, the hat, that was to forgive the sin of ga'ava, haughtiness. Then the avnet, the sash, was a big sash, that was for the sin of hirhur halev, the thoughts of the heart, bad thoughts, obviously. The choshen, it had the 12 stones, and had Hashem's name that was inserted behind the 12 stones, right? And that was for perverted judgment. Judgment that was done wrong, with judges who were not honest. The me'il, it was a tunic And that was for Lashon Hara, to get forgiveness for slander, for Lashon Hara. And the tzitz, a headband that has Hashem name on it, and that was for chutzpah, to forgive chutzpah. So we see how each one, there were 8 pieces for the Kohen Gadol to wear every day, and each piece was made very special and with a special material. And there were many kings who were really very envious because it really was for honor and splendor. And so here there's an obvious question. Why is clothing so important? Why does Aaron have to wear such clothing, such special clothing, right? And why did Hashem command Moshe to have this special clothing made for Aaron? Only the Kohen Gadol was allowed to wear them. No one else, right? And what's the lesson what is the lesson for us? And now I would like to explain to you something, that Lashon HaKodesh, Hebrew, is not just a language like English, Arabic, Chinese, French, Spanish, any other language, Mandarin, any language you want to think of. It's not. It's not just a bunch of letters that have been put together to make a word. It doesn't work like this in the Lashon HaKodesh, in Hebrew. So, and what we find in Lashon HaKodesh, we do not find in any other language. There is no such a thing as just a word in Lashon HaKodesh. So let's look at the word beged. It says begde kodesh, the cloth of holy cloth. Bigde is beged, one piece of cloth. Now, if we look at the words beged and we recite the aleph bet, it's aleph, then bet, gimel, dalet. How do we spell the word beged? Bet, gimel, dalet. They really follow each other. They in order of sequence. And why does it come after aleph? If it comes in order of sequence, why not start from aleph? And what does aleph hence for? To aleph is for alufo shel olam, the master of the world. Hashem. That's aleph. He's one, he's unique, and he's special. Beged is a shoresh. It's a root word for the word begida, rebellion, to rebel. Because when we look at ourselves, first of all, we're full of ourselves. Oh wow, I'm so undressed. Yeah, it looks good on me. I look good with my dress, with my top, whatever it is, right? With my outfit. Or when we see someone who is well dressed, right away in our mind, what do we think? Oh, this person, he or she, is a respectable one. It's a respectable person. We might actually even know who this person, and we might even know that this person really has no substance. Yeah, dresses well, but that's all there is to it. On the other hand, if we see someone that we know is respectable and is of good character, yet he or she is dressed poorly, most people won't give him or her the time of the day or pay any attention to him or her. That's what beged teaches us. In Hebrew, we also have a numerical value for each letter, gematria. We also have otiyot mitchalfot, letters that they interchange. And we call, there's one way is what we call at bash. At is aleph, the first letter. Tav is the last letter. So we replace the aleph for the taf, right? So we change the aleph for the taf, the bet for the shin, the gimel with the resh, the dalet with the kuf. In this case, beged, once we change the letter, what do we get? We get the word sheker. Beged, clothing, becomes lies. Sheker. What, what does this teach us? What is this? This is to teach us that clothing does not always reflect the true facts. It doesn't. One of the lessons why we dress up on Purim is exactly for this fact, that clothing does not reflect the truth. In English, we say, there are a few sayings that say, dress to impress, or a wolf in sheep's clothing, or clothes make the man. These are different ways how we just say that really the clothing is not who you really are. So coming back now to Bigdei Kehuna, the holy clothing of the Kohen Gadol, they are for honor and splendor, Hashem said. Since the Kohen Gadol represents Hashem on earth, he is Hashem's ambassador on earth. The clothing worn by the Kohen Gadol was meant to bring forgiveness, kapara, to the generation. So first, what it represents, that the Kohen Gadol is an ambassador on earth. And then, number two, that the clothing bring forgiveness, kapara, to the generation. Then our next question is, why did Hashem command Moshe to have the clothing made for Aaron? They were for Aaron, they were not for Moshe. Why didn't Hashem tell Aaron, go and have people make clothing for you? And the answer is like this, maybe a little bit shocking. Since Moshe was the leader, and Aaron was the Kohen Gadol, Hashem wanted Moshe to work on his midot, on his character. We said that the clothing of the Kohen Gadol were the envy of kings. Moshe was considered like a king. Hashem didn't want that Moshe should have any ill feelings towards Aharon because of the clothing. Even though we know that Moshe didn't have any. But just in case the Yetzer Hara would come and try to awaken something against Aaron, Hashem says, you tell Aharon, you get the clothing made for Aharon. And since Moshe had to be involved in it, it would take away whatever Yetzer Hara might try and get in to bring in any ill feelings towards Aharon. In the Gemara Megillah, Daf Yud Gimel, Amud Aleph, it says like this: Amar Rabbi Hama bar Hanina. Rabbi Hama, son of Hanina, said, Mordechai bedoro ke Moshe bedoro. Now we come to compare Moshe and Mordechai. Just as Moshe was a leader, and he was a perfect leader for Bnei Israel in the desert, so too was Mordechai the perfect leader for the Jews in his days. He understood the people. He knew how to lead them. His leadership was effective, just like Moshe. In Perek Bet, Pasuk He of the Megillah, it says, Ish Yehudi Haya Beshushan Habira. There was a Jewish man in Shushan Habira. That doesn't give us his name. Isn't that odd? However, we know that the term Ish implies someone who is important. And so Midrash explains and says like this regarding Moshe in Sefer Bamidbar Perek Yudbet Pasuk Gimel, when Miriam says, "Oh, Moshe is not the only one that Hashem spoke to. Hashem spoke to us also, but we did not separate from our." I did not separate from my husband, and Aaron did not separate from his wife. So why is Moshe separating from his wife? She did not know that Hashem had ordered Moshe to separate himself from his wife. And Hashem defended Moshe, and Hashem said, "Veha'ish Moshe anav me'od." And the man, that Moshe, first says the man, then says Moshe, was very humble. Just as Moshe. So we see here that there is the word ish in the Megillah and in the Chumash. And just as Moshe protected and saved Bnei Israel through his tefillot, through his prayers, so too Mordechai. It says in Perek Yud Pasuk Gimel, Doresh Tov v'dover Shalom lechol zar'o. Mordechai would speak well for Ben Israel whenever he could. When he became the prime minister of Achashverosh, at every occasion that he had, he would speak well for his brothers. And he would speak peace for all his generation. Just as Moshe taught Torah to Ben Israel, in Devarim, in Perek Dalet, it says, Re'e limadeti etchem chukim u'mishpatim. I have taught you laws. Chukim are laws that, these are mitzvot, that we don't know why. We don't know the reasons why we have to do these mitzvot, but we still have to do them. For example, the mitzvah of Para Aduma. And mishpatim are laws that actually it makes sense to guard them, to do them. For example, not to steal. We know it's wrong to steal, right? And regarding Mordechai, it says in Perek Tet, Pasuk Lamed, Divrei Shalom ve'emet, words of peace and truth. These words of peace and truth, they were words of Torah that he taught. So does this mean that Mordechai was as great as Moshe? We know Torah says there is no one like Moshe. No, he wasn't. But he too was anav. He too was humble. Mordechai was very humble also. And he looked out for Ben Israel. Says Rabbi Shmuel Yafeh, Ashkenazi, who explained this. And he says Mordechai also looked out for Ben Israel. He too sacrificed his time, his energy, and even more for the Jews. He too loved the Jews, and he used all his resources for the Jews. Then Rabbi Yehuda Chassid explains like this, and he says like this. Twice in the Tanakh, it says, Velo kam, and did not stand up. When are those two times? One regarding Moshe, and one regarding Mordechai. When was these two times? in Sefer Devarim, Perek Lamed Dalet, it says, Velo kam navi od be'Israel keMoshe. There never was another Navi who stood up like Moshe as a prophet and a defender of Ben Israel. And in the Megillah, in Perek He, Pasuk Tet, it says, Velo kam velo za' mimeno. That he did not stand up, Mordechai did not stand up, and did not move because of Haman. I mean, he stood his grounds, defending Bnei Israel and defending the Torah. Rabbi Yehuda says, Moshe kibel Torah. Moshe received the Torah from Hashem, and he passed it on to Yoshua, to the Zekanim, and on and on. Mordechai, in the days of Mordechai, it says in the Megillah Perek Tet Pasuk Chav Zayin, Kiblu v'kiyemu haYehudim, that the Jews accepted the Torah and performed the mitzvot be'ahava, with love, besimcha. And the Chida brings, so we see, sorry, before I explain about the Chida. So we see here the parallels between Moshe and Mordechai. The Chida brings two hints that really the Gezerah of Haman was cancelled in the Zechut of Moshe and his prayers. Moshe? So when is that? So the first hint comes after Haman was hung, where it says in Perek Zayin Pasuk Yud, Vechamat HaMelech shachacha. And the anger, the wrath of the king had come down. It had passed. Who was the king? So we all think it's Achashverosh, the king. But but really, in Chachamim and in the Gemara says that every time that it says Hamelech in the Megillah, it's not referring to Achashverosh. It's really referring to Hashem. The Melech, Hamelech is Hashem. That is written in Gemara in Megillah, Daf Tetvav Amud Bet. And so in the Zechut of Moshe, it was Shachacha. Because of Moshe, the anger of Hashem calmed down. The question is, how is Moshe connected to Haman? And so now the Arizal says like this. He writes in Sha'ar HaGilgulim. The Arizal writes in his Sefer Sha'ar HaGilgulim. And he writes like this. When we look at the name Moshe ben Amram, and we take Moshe ends with a he, Ben ends with a nun, Amram with a mem. When we put together, what do we get? Haman. That Haman met his end in the Zechut of Moshe. Haman was killed because of Moshe, in the Zechut of Moshe. In Perek Gimel of the Megillah, Pasuk Zayin, it says, Haman hipil pur hu hagoral, that Haman had made a lottery, and the goral, mean the lot, was, and it says, in Gemara Megillah Yud Gimel Amud Bet, it says, because the lot fell on Chodesh Adar, in the month of Adar, Haman was very happy. Not just happy, but very happy. Why? Because the month of Adar is the month that Moshe died. But he did not know that Moshe was also born in Zayin Adar. So there's right away a question that jumps to us. Why didn't the Gemara ask the question differently? The Gemara should really have asked and said, Haman did not know that the birth date of Moshe was Zain Adar, but then he was very happy when the Lord fell on Adar, because that's when Moshe died. Right? And so what's the answer to that? Rabbi Yonatan Eibishitz answers, and he says like this. According to the Zohar, Mordechai, hold on to your chairs, was the Gilgul, the reincarnation of Moshe. Haman is the Egyptian that Moshe killed. When did Moshe kill an Egyptian? When Moshe grew up, and for the first time he left Paro's palace and he went out to check on the Jews, check on them, and see how the Jews were living. And he saw an Egyptian hitting a Jew, trying to kill the Jew. So Moshe said Hashem's name and he killed the Egyptian. Now, who came back in reincarnation? That Egyptian. He came in the body of Haman. And that's why Haman wanted to take revenge of Mordechai, because Mordechai was a reincarnation of Moshe, who had killed the Egyptian. And Haman was the incarnation of that Egyptian. Esther is the Gilgul of Batia, the daughter of Paro who saved Moshe. And that's why Mordechai adopted her and took her in as a daughter. Mordechai slash Moshe, right? Just as Batia had taken in Moshe to protect him and save him, right? And so Mordechai, he had paid back, so to speak, he had paid back to Batia, Batia slash Esther, and has saved Esther and took her in as a daughter. And so we come back to Haman, who was very happy, thinking that there's no one who can stand up and pray and defend and save Ben Israel. But he did not know that Mordechai was a Gilgul of Moshe, who was born on Zain Adar. And Mordechai will stand up, and he will pray, and he will protect and defend and save Bnei Israel. So when the Gemara says that Haman did not know that he was born on Zain Adar, it's because he is not referring to Moshe, it's referring to the Gilgul, to Mordechai. So Haman did not know that Mordechai was born on Zain Adar. And the Zohar says, Mordechai, being the Gilgul of Moshe, he had to do a tikkun. A tikkun, he had to fix something. That's why there's reincarnation. Whoever comes back in the reincarnation, in this case, it's really all of us. There are very few neshamot that are new. Most of us, we are Gilgulim. And we come back because we have to fix something that the previous owner of our neshama had made a mistake or had done something wrong. So Mordechai had to fix a mistake that Moshe had done. What was the mistake? When Moshe had to run away from Paro, he ran to Midian. And he came by a well, and he saw many shepherds. And he saw the daughters of Yitro. And he saw them, they had filled up the troughs with water for their sheep to drink. But the shepherds wanted to shoo them away and use the water. And Moshe came in their defense and said, no, they are the ones who filled up the troughs, so they are the one have got to go first. So it ended up being that the daughters of Yitro came home early. So the father asked, wow, you came home early. Who, how, how did this happen? And so they said there was a Ish Mitzri, there was an Egyptian man who helped us. That's how we ended up coming home early. And they told him the story. But Moshe did not correct them when they said Ish Mitzri, right? Did not correct them. And here we see, and actually, the Zohar says that's one of the reasons why Moshe was not buried in Eretz Israel is because of this. And so how did Mordechai fix this? Mordechai, when people came to him and said to him, why aren't you bowing down to Haman? He simply could have said, I don't bow down. My religion does not allow me to bow down. Okay, fine, that's it. But he didn't say that. He said, Ani Yehudi, very proud. I am a Jew. I don't bow down. And he publicly proclaimed that he is a Jew. This way, he fixed Moshe's mistake. So, in a nutshell, we learned some very important lessons in this shiur. The first one being that money can destroy, but money also can save. Haman used his money to destroy us, in the process destroy himself. Ben Israel used the money to come together in unity to make a mitzvah, the mitzvah of tzedakah. Clothing can bring us to rebel. How? By feeling full of ourselves, proud of ourselves. But clothing can also bring forgiveness. Clothing can trick our eyes. It's not really what we see, but Bigdei Kodesh can bring forgiveness. Holy clothing can bring kapara, forgiveness. Amalek wanted to kill us, to cool us off, meaning that he didn't want us to bring this idea in the world of Hashem and have emunah of Hashem. But our emunah creates a fire within us. Amalek wanted to create doubts about Hashem and the Torah. But the Torah brings us and gives us kedusha that brings us closer to Hashem. Moshe was quiet about his identity. Mordechai came and fixed it by telling the whole world that he's Yehudi. And as a Jew, he doesn't bow down. And actually, this here brings to mind the story of the journalist Pearl, who was, I think, in Afghanistan, where he was, or Iraq, where ISIS caught him and they killed him. And they asked him, are you Jewish? He didn't look Jewish at all. He could have saved himself and said, no. But he did. He said, yes, I am Jewish. And they killed him for it. We get the same lesson also from the hostages. How they proclaim their emunah. Some of them had no clue about mitzvot, about Shabbat, about brachot, about anything. But I said, no, I'm a Jew. One of them, I forgot his name. He even demanded that they should bring him tefillin. He demanded to have a siddur. Agam Berger demanded to have a siddur. They demanded certain things that before they never really cared for. But it's the same thing. It's proclaiming, I am a Jew. Anything and everything in the world can be a vessel for Tum'ah or for Kedusha. However, it is up to us to make the right choice. And sometimes it's not easy to make that choice. So when money is used for a mitzvah, it cancels gezerot. When appearances are made in Kedusha, then it brings forgiveness. When living our lives with fire of Torah and mitzvot, Amalek is being erased. As we have the mitzvah of erasing the remembrance of Amalek, right? This is our avodah, our service of every Jew in every generation. May Hashem give us the zechut of leading our lives, a life in Kedusha. And may we see Yeshuot. Purim Sameach.